Welcome back to SouFLoTV again, everybody. It is your host with the most. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, please. Let's get right into this. We do these videos because we just try to show people how when you get that opportunity to go overseas, especially to countries that have way more opportunities that you can exploit to become somebody better, to become wealthier, those kind of things, lay down foundation, build a foundation, get rich if you want, go the right way. So many choose to go the wrong way and they end up paying the consequences. This is one of those stories. Don't be this guy. This is about a cop killer who left Jamaica, went to Canada, ended up killing a police officer, wounding another police officer, and got 2 life sentences in prison. He was sentenced to where he had to do 25 years before he was eligible for parole. There is a petition that was out to make sure that he does life, natural life in prison without ever getting out. Taken from the Toronto Sun, Mandel. Cop killer Clinton Gayle denied his wish to be deported to Jamaica. After going to the parole board, Clinton said, "Canada can please send me to Jamaica." What Clinton was doing was he was trying to manipulate the situation again. Clinton knew that if he was deported to Jamaica, Jamaica is not going to put you in prison. Jamaica hardly ever holds anybody for natural life. You can get incarcerated and die ill, but they won't be holding you for natural life. So being that his crime was not committed in Jamaica, a deportation would simply mean he would be released to paradise. Well, this is how that story went. So after 25 years of denying any responsibility for killing 2 Toronto police constables, Todd Bayliss, for killing Toronto police constable, he didn't kill 2. Let's get the story right. He killed Todd Bayliss and he injured his partner. And suddenly, now at the parole board, it said that Clinton Gayle was remorseful and he was hoping that the parole board of Canada would deport him back to Jamaica, where he knew that he would be virtually free of any supervision, well, except for that of his family looking over him. And of course, your family can't really hold you in place. So he would be a free man. But according to the decision obtained by the Toronto Sun, the board thankfully saw through his insincerities and was similarly unimpressed with his verbatim liaison with a correctional officer and denied him any release at all. So apparently he was even back there in prison having relations with a female guard, a correctional officer, and he got caught. So what they were saying is, you're not a changed man. You're still trying to manipulate the system. You say the right things, but you did not show very much emotions or emotional response during your hearing, even to the part when everybody was listening to the victim impact statement. The victim impact statement is when the family members and friends come forward to speak, and they will say stuff like, if it's the mother of the victim, "My son is my everything. He was my only son. He had 2 children, gave me 2 beautiful grandchildren. Those 2 beautiful grandchildren were 2 and 3 when you killed my son. Those children, I've had to raise them. They don't really know who their father is because you took them away." That kind of stuff, right? The victim impact statement. And the board said, even while the victim impact statement was being read again, they were observing him, Gayle's behavior. And while they were observing his behavior, there was no reaction to him, like a psycho, like someone that is emotionless, which can be described as tragic, heart-wrenching. The whole statement, victim impact statement, that process. It's usually tragic and heart-wrenching, and people usually sob a little or feel a great deal of remorse or feel a great deal of empathy for the victims who are speaking. But your apparent lack of any empathy is still a concern, and it still raises doubt about the degree of your genuineness and your sincerity. That's all the parole board means. It means after you've served that 25 years, you go before a board of people who have been observing you for quite some time. They're going to look at the time you spent behind bars, how you spent the time behind bars. Did you spend it racking up charges, cutting up, stabbing up, fighting, raping other inmates behind bars? Did you become a total savage, gang leader, this, that, and the other? Or did you become a religious sect leader? I don't know, Muslim. A lot of guys turned Muslim or joined the Christians behind bars, got baptized, started preaching, led a youth group of trying to tell young offenders to do better, etc., etc. How did you spend your time behind bars? Well, for him, it was the total opposite of anything that was good. He was back there having sex with a correction officer who got caught, by the way, and he was involved in many other things. So this is the story, on June 16th, way back in 1994, the convicted crack dealer and illegal immigrant, remember, he was also not supposed to be in Canada. He was an illegal immigrant, and he was there selling crack. Gayle was under a deportation order already also. That means the immigration system in Canada had already caught up to him. They had already ran him through the process. They had already given him orders to get out of the country, right? He moved address. So when they went to go serve his deportation order to look for him, you know how like ICE does in the US, they kick in the door, come find you if you don't deport yourself, and they drag you down to one of their detention centers, etc. When they went to look for Gayle back then, he was gone. He ran. But then he tried to set up a life for himself in Canada while doing illegal activities. Gayle didn't say, let me go find a Canadian girl and get married to. Let me go find a big fat thing and get married to. Let me set up myself this way. Nah, he was on the streets. He was doing crime. He was selling crack, cocaine under his deportation order. Was dealing in, and here he was in a public housing project or housing area, and he was dealing crack. So here comes these two police officers now, Baylis and his partner, Michael Leon, and they stopped during their normal routine through the area, according to the court paperwork from Canada. And one of them said, "What's up?" It was Baylis. Baylis always said, "What's up?" So he was 25 years old, young police officer. He said, "What's up?" They said as soon as he said, "What's up?" the Jamaican punched him in his chest, bow, driving him back towards his partner. This is the parole board reading over. Let me read it exactly how they wrote it. You punched him, driving him back into his partner. The parole decision recounts. You fled on foot, and the officers chased you. In a stairwell, the officers and you struggled, and you removed some outer clothing in the struggle. You had a handgun in your pocket, but the officer did not see it, so they continued to struggle with him. According to file information, you were assaulting the officers, and Leon, one of the officers, sprayed you with pepper spray, but the pepper spray had no effect. You fled. You ran up a stairwell and through a door with the officers hot in pursuit. As you and officer crashed through the door, you pulled out your gun and you shot Leon in his shoulder. And then you shot him in his back as he tried to dive out of the way after being shot. You then shot Baylis in his head at a very close range that is estimated to be no more than 6 inches from the muzzle of the gun to the side of his head. Leon then managed to shoot you defending his partner, while information indicates that your gun jammed after 2 shots. Had that gun not jammed, you would have killed both police officers. At this parole hearing held at his medium security prison in Abbotsford, the 50-year-old Gayle, who is now 50, of course, Gayle admitted for the first time ever, because all along he's been saying he's not responsible. So here he is at parole, now admitted for the first time ever. He said, I panicked by opening fire. Until now, he has always maintained that the officers shot at him first for no reason, even though Bayless's gun never left his holster. The police officer that he killed, his gun was locked in his holster and it never left his holster. But he went to court and said the police shot at him first, so he had to shoot back to defend himself. The panel questioned his sudden change of heart. How come suddenly, now you're at parole, you're finally admitting that you did wrong? The board is concerned that you might be saying what you think you need to say to be granted this parole rather than accepting total responsibility. We don't think that you are rehabilitated. In 2004, Gayle was transferred from a maximum to a medium security prison because he is aging behind bars. But in 2016, he was bumped back up to a maximum for a year after he compromised a female staff member in an inappropriate relationship, which is what I told y'all about before. The exact nature couldn't be determined, the board said, but she left her job and he insisted it wasn't sexual, but it was only a lot of flirtatious behavior. Word is out that they had a full-blown sexual relationship, him and a prison guard, and she ended up resigning. He's now back in a medium security, this time in British Columbia. He works in the prison library. His risk to reoffend is assessed as how he is considered a polite inmate who works well with his case management team. So, well, that may be recommended at the parole board, but Gayle is under deportation orders that would send him back to Jamaica within 48 hours of his release on parole. So, granting him day parole would essentially guarantee his freedom. This is not like if what the law in Canada was concerned about was that this deportation order is strict on him. It says already in writing that he is to be deported to Jamaica within 48 hours of his release, if he is even released on parole. Which means if they released him on parole in Canada without a deportation order, they would be able to monitor him in the community, right? Because on parole, you have to go report to your parole officer. Then you have to find a job. You have to take piss tests drug tests on a regular basis. You have to basically live a certain kind of way on parole until you're off parole to prove that you have been rehabilitated. Or your first little slip up, you go back to prison, right? But in his case and his paperwork, because he is not a Canadian citizen, not even by naturalization, he has no legal grounds to be in Canada. He is an illegal immigrant. If he is granted parole and set out, they must send him to Jamaica in 48 hours of his release on parole. So this is what they're concerned about. The parole board calls that highly concerning. And shout out to the parole board in Canada, because on behalf of Jamaica, Jamaica doesn't need any more people like these. I'm sorry, but yes, he is a Jamaican, but you guys have had him in prison in Canada for 20 plus years now. Keep him there because Jamaica can't handle him. Any conditions imposed by the board will not be enforceable in Jamaica is their major concern. Report to a probation or parole officer. Get a regular drug test. Have a gainful employment at all times. Reside in a community that is within certain distance of a school. Don't interact with other criminals, people with criminal records. Blah. You know how the parole restrictions go. Nobody would be able to enforce that with him. He would get off a plane in Jamaica, breathe in some clean, fresh Caribbean air, and start a whole new life again. Also, there is no information before the board regarding any level of supervision in Jamaica other than the monitoring that will be provided by his family. His family cannot be held responsible for him. His family cannot be held to a level of accountability for him. He's not a pet. He's a person. He's an individual. He can very well walk off into Jamaica and go any which place he chooses, and his family will have nothing to say. The panel was also concerned about his lack of empathy. He doesn't seem to be the kind of person that has any kind of feelings much. Bayless' family, partner, and former fiance wrote a heart-wrenching victim impact statement while acknowledging that he was deeply sorry. Gayle appeared to feel mostly sorry for himself, not for the family that he took Bayless away from, not for the partner who lost her partner, not for the victims, the fiance, for himself. Gayle appeared to feel more sorry for himself than anybody else. He told his psychologist that while a person lost his life, he said, I lost 25 years of my life too. Wow. Not putting into consideration that the person he killed lost their life forever. And if he was to get out at this point, it would be 25 years into his sentence, and that's all you would have lost. You would have been in prison for 25 years, but you're still alive. You killed one police officer, and you tried to kill another one while they were protecting the public. And the resulting pain, loss, anger felt by those who loved the officers as well as the community at large has not wanted the parole board to grant you a parole, sir. You present an undue risk to society by reoffending, and day and full parole are denied, at least for now. That is how his parole hearing ended. Now, he'll be up for parole again. I don't know when. There's a petition page out that's called www.change.org. Parole Board of Canada deny Clinton Gayle's parole from his double life sentence. What they are aiming for: in addition, the applicant was found guilty of a brutal and horrific crime, given that reality and the uncertainties regarding the applicant's attitude and conduct while incarcerated. I do not believe that 12 jurors would ever, even in the exercise of the very broad discretion vested in them, come to the level of comfort in this case that they would decide that the applicant should be given the opportunity to apply for early parole. He got struck down, but not only did he get struck down, they're hoping that he is struck down in a way that he's denied the right to ever even go to the parole board again. Right? June of 2019 made it 25 years behind bars for him. So he served the 25, which when you were sentenced to life, it says you are sentenced to life in prison. You must serve 25 years before you are eligible for parole. Doesn't mean you get out of prison. It means at 25 years, the prison system, the parole board will take a look at you to see if you have been rehabilitated. If not, then you can be there for 100 years. Clinton Gayle deserved to spend the rest of his natural life behind bars for the heinous and brutal execution-style murder of Constable Bayliss and the attempted murder of Constable Leon. The people on this support page and fundamental idea that life in the Canadian justice system should mean life in the Canadian justice system. It is a life sentence for the victims of such crimes, so it should be a life sentence for the perpetrators as well. With that said, I'll say it again. Jamaica doesn't need him. Y'all have had him for 25 years. At this point, the advocate group is trying to make sure that he will never even be able to apply for parole again. Just stay where you're at in prison for natural life. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Do you think that he should be pardoned and released and deported to Jamaica? Or do you think that Jamaica could do without that burden and he needs to stay in Canada and serve natural life for the life he took? Not to mention the whole argument about when people from our homeland countries and Caribbean countries go overseas and do things like these, how it makes it bad for others that came after. But we'll do that on another day. I'm out. Peace.